Hey Trekkies, it's summer, and you know what that means. It's time for Creation Entertainment's Trek to Las Vegas 2025. This year, the convention has been expanded to a 5-day schedule, August 6th through the 10th at the Rio Las Vegas Hotel. Meet all your favorite Star Trek pros in one place, and hey, maybe you swing by Vic's Lounge and you see our panel. It's a great way to meet people in person and have some fun with your fellow Trekkies. If you can't make it to Star Trek Las Vegas, of course, there's also other events around the country this year. Trek to Orlando, August 23rd through 24th. There's the Trek to New Jersey, September 6th and 7th. And finally, the Trek to Chicago, November 22nd and 23rd. We're looking forward to meeting as many of you as we can this year. So make sure that you get ready to trek to Las Vegas.
Is this thing on? Hello, hello. Welcome to Open Pike Night. I'm your host, John T. Bolds, here tonight with some amazing guests on stage and in the studio to discuss Episode 5 of Strange New Worlds, Spock Amok. We're here tonight to take it easy, have a little downtime, practice some radical empathy, shoot each other with phasers, and really get to know each other on a deeper level. As always, we're glad to welcome our lineup of voices to the Open Pike Night Stage. Each week, we want to hear what you think about every new episode of Strange New Worlds as they drop. So when you watch the episode on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, if you have something you want to share on the Open Pike Night Stage, please record an audio clip, 90 seconds or less, and send it to openpike@gmail.com by Sunday morning. You have 3 days to send us 90 seconds and take your place on the Open Pike Night Stage. Be sure to follow @OpenPike on Twitter and subscribe to a weekly reminder newsletter. Most importantly, please be sure to share the episode with your friends, and please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Joining me today are my co-hosts, the man who invented signing the Scorch because he can't resist getting his name out there in any way possible, host of Sudden But Inevitable, Jessie.
Oh, it's me, Jessie, stuck in Cameron's body again. You know it's me because I counted all of La'an's blinks this episode and converted them into Romulan Morse code, and it spells out, you won't guess this, I am a Gorn spy.
And the man who will go as deep, and I mean deep, as he can to understand the soul of Star Trek, host of the Green Shirt Podcast, Cameron.
I want James Gunn and Peter Jackson to collaborate on a genre-bending rock opera body-swapping horror musical episode of Star Trek, and it is the only thing I have ever wanted.
Wow, he does know my soul.
And today we have a special guest in the studio, a man who's here to take a big meaty bite out of Trek while relaxing on the beach. Co-host of the Let's Jaws for a Minute podcast, MJ.
Hi everybody. I'm in my own body. I'm just me.
It's time to figure out what your real priorities are and join us in the audience for Open Pike Night. If you're here on a date, try not to ruin things when she says you can skip dinner, but keep the podcast on if you really want to set the right mood. MJ, tell us a little bit about your experience with Star Trek up until Strange New Worlds.
Well, it is minimal at best. The piece of Star Trek media I am the most familiar with is the Kelvin Timeline pinball machine.
Yes.
Followed closely by the Next Generation pinball machine. Followed closely by the original series pinball machine. So
what's the best one?
You know what? I actually kind of lied about the other two. I've never played the original series pinball machine. I've played the Next Generation one twice ever, maybe. That's the most beloved one, but I don't have enough time with it to know. So yeah, my favorite is the Kelvin Timeline one, but there are two different Kelvin Timeline pinball machines within 100 yards of each other in my current city. So that's the one I have the most time on.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us today at Open Pike Night. And as far as Strange New Worlds, are you caught up, or is this the only episode you've seen?
No, I thought about having this be the only episode I'd seen, but my OCD would not let that happen. No. So yeah, I've seen all 5 episodes now.
All right. Excellent. Well, let's hear from our first guest on stage.
What's up, Open Pike? Steve with Sincera here. This episode took me for a wild ride into the realm of completely unexpected because the only thing I saw in the trailer were scenes from Spock's dream. So I thought it was going to be a darker Spock Amok time episode. But then they decided to wake up from that dream and turn it into Freaky Friday in space. And I didn't stop laughing from the minute they switched bodies to almost the end of the episode. Also, it was just really fun. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a body swapping comedy where they said, we should tell him, oh, let's, and everyone believes them. Usually it's like, yeah, okay. And then they have to go on carrying on the charade. Really glad we got to know T'Pring a little better. I'm fascinated in where her character is going to go. I was watching this with Miss Sincera, and I had to peel the hair back from her ears to make sure that they weren't pointed as well. It'd be great if they were, but I was just curious maybe that they were the same person. Yeah, I had a great time with this one. Really glad to see Command Green is back and all of the hijinks that ensue between La'an and Una. But mostly, like, I got to add that Command Green tunic to my collection. So, live long and prosper, everybody.
All right, that was Steve at Sincera Biz on Twitter, known Picard impersonator. So, we got so close to Spock on 3 dates. I mean,
You know what? I'm gonna call this. I'm gonna give this points for me. I mean, I would give this points for me. I guess since you guys aren't me, you can determine if I get points or not. But this was pretty close, right? I mean, I was like, we're gonna have Spock triple booking these dates. It's gonna be at the same restaurant. It was not that far off of that. I feel like
it was in the same neighborhood. For sure.
I am unfamiliar with the bit you're talking about that I assume has been a running gag on this show. But during the episode, I definitely looked at my wife and was like, "Oh, we're getting Spock on multiple dates."
Yes.
So yes. I absolutely thought that's where it was headed.
I really like that Steve is openly wishing that his wife had pointed ears, or maybe I misinterpreted that, but I did like his equating of the personalities there, and I think it's probably an episode you could watch with a significant other, even if they're not super into Star Trek, because it sort of, I mean, is about that, right? Like,
yeah.
Spock's like, look, I love Star Trek, and T'Pring's like, yeah, but real life, and he's like, but Star Trek. So, I mean, I totally get where Spock is coming from.
Yeah.
And Steve.
I did watch this with my significant other, and she was just disappointed the whole time until finally they got naked at the very end. She was really waiting for them to get naked the whole time.
Oh, yeah. I was like, oh, this is a great date episode of Trek, but it's like, we're ignoring what obviously happened when they first realized they swapped bodies. That's what, what happened in that scene break where we had the black screen for a little while. It's like, yeah, we know it.
They address that in the episode, though, don't they?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Nurse Chapel is definitely the audience surrogate there.
Yeah.
I thought it was amazing how different Ethan Peck looks with human ears. I don't know if that's the only thing they did to him, but that just changes the whole shape of his face.
I think he was opening his eyes a little more like, I'm a human.
Yeah, his eyebrows were different, his hairstyle was different, his ears were different, and I think in that sequence that he was more Vulcaned up also as the Vulcan. I think they went full Vulcan.
So the term you're looking for is vulked out.
Vulked out, yeah, he absolutely vulked out.
You wouldn't like him when he's logical.
Yeah,
that's a secret, John.
Incredible Vulk. Oh, damn it!
Incredible Hulk.
I was like, man, Vulcans have a long way to walk to get married on a very perilous looking bridge too. Apparently, they follow the Elven and Dwarven style of architecture and just don't put guardrails anywhere.
It's a very powerful metaphor for marriage, clearly. Like, long, narrow, very rickety bridge, no guardrails. Good luck. You can't really even see the whole bridge from here.
You pretty much get to make one mistake.
Yeah, it's a life or death thing. It's a forever bond. I mean, it's a pretty good visual metaphor. I gotta say, the actress who plays T'Pring is doing an amazing job. I have kind of been wanting us to get back to T'Pring just because there was something in her chemistry, the three-way chemistry, Be Quiet Cameron, between her and Pike and Spock in that scene where she was like, yes, don't worry, you should have asked me that, but don't worry, right? was it the first episode?
First
It was
episode,
like,
yep.
It's like, this is a resolution of that, and it still gets kind of Spock blocked.
And I will say, I have my issues with this episode, but the one issue I don't have is with anybody's acting or performance in this episode. This was a masterclass in an entire cast really just bringing what they got to the screen.
Okay,
So-
I have to ask Cameron.
Oh.
The green shirt. How did you feel? What did you think about the green shirt?
I felt a little starstruck, really, to be frank.
Are we talking about Pike's Diplomaction jacket?
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic shirt.
It was a nice jacket,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
In the preview, I was like, why is it shiny? And what is with the shoulders going on there? But then when I saw, okay, it's like a different fabric on the shoulders. It sticks with how they would put like the command, insignia there and then not on the rest of the uniform. I really like that. And I love that it wraps all the way around in a single piece and clasps in that like horizontal Starfleet Delta, of course, because I'm a huge nerd. I'm seeing people on Twitter say that they liked it better on Shatner or Bakula, and I am begging those people to please just come to reason. What are you talking about?
They're just putting their thumb over Pike's face and hair when they say that.
Even then, I would think like it's like superhero person, and then those two guys. And I'm not disparaging them. I'm just saying Pike has superhero body.
Well, we've got our next guest, Cam. We're going to be early in this episode. What is your guess for Crusher Connection this week?
Crusher Connection. Well, I'm going to steal mine from our previous guest, Marcy. She was texting us a bit, and she had mentioned that Dr. Mbinga's sea urchin paste kind of reminded her of Dr. Crusher's root juice that she concocted in the first season when she had broke her leg and she needed to instruct Picard on how to like create some root concoctment to help her. So that's my Crusher connection. I'm interested to hear what Michelle came up with.
Hey, Open Pike Night. Another wonderful installment of Strange New Worlds for episode 5. I feel a little bit like a broken record, but I'm just loving the show. The opening sequence was phenomenal, especially the way it harkened back to Amok Time and TOS, both visually and with the soundtrack. Ethan Peck nailed it in this episode, especially with the humor. And I love the way that Pike was in on the body swap, but he was not fazed by it at all. I enjoyed all the pairings, and I just felt like it was a funny kind of comfort episode with good character development. But I am going to speak on something a little controversial that came up on Twitter about the portrayal of Uhura and Chapel. I have no issue with Strange New Worlds undoing the sexist garbage that was in TOS. This is going to help redeem TOS. And if there's any conflict in the portrayal of these female characters, it's probably because TOS was the problem in the first place. This is coming from a fan of TOS all the way back to my childhood, and rewatching it now, I can see how it was progressive for the time, but not for today. So that's my 2 cents there. The Beverly Crusher of it all, I'm sorry, Cameron, it's a little bit spoilerish. You may have to wait 2 years to find out. Season 7, episode attached. If you know what happens to Beverly in that episode, there's some similarities. Don't want to give too much away, but if you know, you know. All right, till next time, live long and prosper.
Michelle, calling back in at On The Rock 81, bringing her weekly dose of Crusher Connection, and I'm very happy to hear her call out, like, yeah, you know what? 60-year-old TV, no matter how progressive, is still 60 years old.
That's one of my favorite points that has been made in the Twitter discourse this week at Open Pike. One of the points that I think came up was this whole show sort of feels like if the 60s series had money and empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that.
Just going back to both previous speakers on Pike rolling with it. I do love that. I've always loved, right, the competency porn of Star Trek. We deal with that a lot in TNG where, like, there's a setup and you're like, oh, well, usually they would keep this, that they're hearing voices secret. But no, on these shows, they just come out and tell their captain. The captain goes, oh, that sounds like something we've encountered a dozen times before. Let's take it seriously.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I did love that. I do think that scene with Pike and Spock and T'Pring when he comes in and finds out about the body swap is the single best scene of this episode. It is so good. It's so funny. We talked about, I mean, Anson Mount is just showing what a masterful actor he is episode after episode. Last episode, we got him just every range of emotion on his face in 10 seconds. This episode, just those subtle reactions, just making me laugh out loud. Like he doesn't even have the punchline. It's his reactions that cause the laughter. And it's so good.
MJ, how do you feel about Anson Mount about our captain?
You know, it's interesting because I don't think Anson Mount is that good of an actor, but I think he's an excellent Star Trek captain.
Not a fan of him in Crossroads?
The Britney Spears movie or the Ralph Macchio movie?
Britney Spears movie,
Ooh.
obviously.
I think he's a very good Star Trek captain, and I think he embodies sort of... I think this is maybe a larger praise that I have for the show, and it's going to sound like it's not, but it feels very old-fashioned, and I like that. Like, I like that it feels like it could have come out in the 60s. It's very of that sort of Gene Roddenberry, Rod Serling school of television storytelling with, like, people know everything, and it's very socially forward in terms of, like, social commentary, but it's also, like you said, people are competent in this. It's not a surprise to Pike that this is happening because this is a world where aliens exist. Like, why would you not... It's not that, much farther to accept, like, oh, one of these alien races has this ability to switch bodies with each other. So that whole play of that is really interesting, and it's something they keep doing. To my knowledge, it's a very Star Trek thing, but it's something they keep doing over the course of the 5 episodes I've seen, where they take a certain, like, convention or idea that you've seen done a million times, but they put this spin on it where normally if information is withheld from a character, that character knows it. If it's something that would baffle a character, the character actually just rolls with it, and it keeps everything feeling fresh, despite feeling also, from my understanding, true to the larger franchise it's a part of.
To MJ's point specifically of this feeling close to a Roddenberry series, I used to tell people that I think the next generation looks and feels how Roddenberry wanted Star Trek to feel the first time, right? He was like, what if I had
I'd agree
a
with that.
huge budget and like all these effects, and syndication had already created all this money for this show. I now think that this might be what he was picturing, because this looks like the sleekest thing I've ever seen, but it is so hot rod, it's so 60s, it's so pastel, right? Like, I think that you really hit on something there.
We've had 2 people talk about that opening dream sequence. It was super cool. I thought it was kind of a bold choice to put a Cable Guy reference right in the middle
Right?
of it.
I know. I was like, wow, did Jim Carrey get paid for the rights to the song he sung?
Yeah, they used the Jim Carrey song.
Yeah.
Okay, I confess. Okay, I saw my dad, which listeners will know is my Star Trek genesis was, connecting with my dad. I saw him today, and he was like, so the music in this episode. And I was like, yeah, it was like straight out of Cable Guy. And he looked at me like he wanted to just kill me.
Because doesn't he intro it by talking about how it's in the doc Gimme Shelter?
Yeah.
Yep.
Which I've seen more recently than Cable Guy. So I went to Gimme Shelter because I had to watch it for a documentary class. But when he intros it in the movie, he says it's in the doc Gimme Shelter. So it's still connected to Cable Guy.
Cameron, I think you may have just been out deep cutted.
I think I was.
All right. Our third guest on stage is returning from their intro last week. Here we go.
So we just finished watching it. What do you think, Jeremy?
I thought it was a fun one. Comedy is hard, especially with a new cast that's doesn't have all of its chemistry together. I felt the Spock plot worked really well. It was quite funny, but I thought the Laan and Una plot was a little bit rough around the edges.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way too.
One thing I felt was a little bit odd is that the crew was intimidated by Una rather than Laan.
Yes,
Yeah.
that struck me too. Because if anybody who is
Right.
the place Fun goes to die, I would think it would be Laan.
Yeah, and just none of the jokes in that part quite landed.
Gelled, yeah. Actually, I'm afraid a lot of the jokes didn't gel well enough. It all felt a tiny bit off. It felt like a slog through it with some really light parts that were fun.
Yeah.
And the characters were great. The visuals were awesome.
I felt like it would have been a great episode if the Spock plot was the B plot and there was some other A plot that was a lot stronger.
So it was like a B and a C plot.
It was like a B and a C plot.
Yeah.
All right, that was returning guest Joel from the Selden Crisis podcast at Joel G. McKinnon and his son Jeremy, giving pretty much immediate post-episode reactions from what he said. I am going to have to agree with a lot of what they said. Like I said, the performance in this episode were great. I really wish that if you're going to start out an episode that's going to be screwball comedy almost, go full screwball comedy. They balanced it well with having some very touching moments, some very deep moments. I feel like the Una and La'an story was horribly wasted, and that it was anticlimactic, and that, yeah, I'm not a huge, like, getting into fan stuff kind of fan. I wrote how I would have liked that storyline to end. I wrote it out last night because I was like, okay, is this funny? I'm like, yes, this would be a much better ending.
I'm really glad that you did that, because I have a reputation in parts of my life as do not come to me without a solution if you think there is a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to say like, oh, all right, fans, if you don't like it, then you need to write in how they need to fix it, because obviously that's nobody's job to do.
Well, my answer would be, great, let them tell them to send me a check and I'll write a script for them.
But that's the thing. Like, if you have a take, we will gladly read it and listen to it and discuss it. Like, I would love to encourage that sort of thing. I don't want to demand that sort of thing, is what I guess I'm trying to say.
Is John going to read us his?
Do it.
I will give you a synopsis because it's like 3 pages long.
Okay.
You were affected.
I was very affected because they, first off, did anybody else freeze frame and read the bingo?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
Okay, good. I'm not going to read that whole list out here. As soon as the phaser duel started, I was like, okay, this is going to be it. This is going to be where they start to actually get into this. And then they just killed it right after that. First off, Una shouldn't have been hurt by that phaser, or if she had, we should have seen her little red glow just a little bit. If she can take a full reactor's worth of radiation, she can take a little phaser hit. Just going to say that. But ignoring that, as soon as La'an said, "Are we having fun yet?" she should have gotten hit in the shoulder, because Una was like, okay, boo, you shot me, I'm shooting you. And then La'an should have, like, security officer reacted and just, shot Una a couple more times. And then it turns into a game of cat and mouse through the halls of the Enterprise, with the two of them getting some stress relief from the last 2 episodes. They've had a lot of intense crap going on in their lives, and they are 2 people who know they can trust each other. And so it gets into a full-on chase through the Enterprise. And finally, in the end, Una's known La'an longer than her whole life, her whole adult life. So she kind of has a little bit of an edge there. And just as La'an decides to use the transporter to help her in chasing down Una gets into the transporter room just in time. They both have turned up to full stun. They both hit each other at the same time and are on the ground. And that's when the 2 ensigns, who are there micro-cleaning the transporter pad as punishment, are like, they see this happen, and the next time we see them, all 4 of them are walking across the hull of the ship to sign the Scorch. And
John, that's a much better route for that.
Yeah,
subplot.
that's essentially a community paintball episode.
Yes.
I was just going to say, I wouldn't mind seeing like the whole ship get in on like this action.
I have a couple things to say here, Producer John.
Go for it.
First of all, I polled our Twitter followers, and I said, how amok was Spock? Was he amok AF? Was he samok? Or was he not amok enough? And 65% of the people think that he was amok AF. I don't disagree that is a good punch-up. I like the change there. I think it is amazing that our first huge complaint for this series is like, I think they didn't go farcical enough with their farce.
That could be funnier.
That's one of my favorite things about this whole thing. But to address the caller's point, I think everybody's probably more afraid of Una because they have just known her longer. La'an at this point is probably still technically considered sort of a new addition to the ship. And as was also pointed out, nobody knows her quite as well as Una does. So they are probably like suspicious of her in like isn't her last name like genetically evil sort of way, but not in like a she's the worst boss kind of way. Can we talk about how great it is that maybe Chief Kyle is the worst boss to have on the Enterprise? Like, do you think that has something
just
to do?
Lose his boyfriend,
That's what
so
I'm
he's pretty
saying.
grumpy
Is
right
it the
now.
fact that the love of his life was literally ripped violently from his arms, like last week on Memorial Day? Like, oh, poor Chief Kyle. I love Chief Kyle, and I really like his very bad deflection when Una
Oh
was
man!
like,
Oh no!
Have you heard
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
That's the moment where I was like, I'm so here for this. My dad described it as like they turned up the camp.
I kind of expected this episode in particular to be pretty divisive because of, like you said, it's a borderline screwball comedy. We don't have a lot of screwball comedies anymore, to the point where most people probably don't even know the definition of what a screwball
Right.
comedy, and they think it's just like zany antics or whatever, or hijinks, I should say. So it does feel very like late 50s, early 60s type of humor, but I like that because the show feels like a late 50s, early 60s type of show with a 2022 production design and budget and acting sensibilities. But I figured like we are so far, especially when it comes to comedy, so far removed from that style of comedy that it like people who mainly have like a modern sensibility of watching stuff, it's going to be probably more miss than hit for them. So I was actually kind of surprised to see mostly positive reactions. It seemed like I really liked it. I thought it was it was definitely whiplashy, especially with this being like my first real in-depth experience with, I mean, I know we jokingly said like the Kelvin timeline pinball machine, but I've seen the Kelvin movies. I've seen Space Seed. Yes. So I've seen Space Seed and I've seen Wrath of Khan. And other than that, like that is actually my my Star Trek experience. So I gravitate to the show, I think, because of how it feels like it's building on, you know, in the sort of like Roddenberry, and I lumped Serling in with this as well, that sort of like social commentary sci-fi show. I'm a big Twilight Zone guy, and I know there's a lot of shared DNA between them. I don't know if they knew each other really all that well, Serling and Roddenberry. I don't know if anyone else knows, but they feel very cut from the same cloth as far as what I know of the two men, and so I'm really enjoying the show overall because it feels like that sort of style of television we don't get anymore. I also think that they're hitting the perfect balance between episodic and serialized television, in that most serialized television I think could just be a movie and it'd probably be better off. And so it was really kind of refreshing to see like an adventure of the week type of thing that's kind of wrapped around by a serialization. I think that's a much better way to do it, but it's also a very like old fashioned way of doing it. And so everything about the show feels very old fashioned. And I mean that as a compliment, down to the humor in the episode.
What did I say? I think I was like, I think there's some borderline non-enthusiasm in these calls.
Yeah.
And like, that's great. But like, you know, I was immediately like, this is going to happen this week. This is going to be the week that it happens. But I think you're right, MJ. It was like largely, I was surprised to see mostly positivity surrounding it. And even in Joel's call, it was like, they're not lambasting the episode or anything.
No.
So,
No, yeah, I'm pretty much where John and Joel are, I think. I think someone on Twitter, you know, said it right when they said, if this is the worst episode of Strange New Worlds, then this is going to be a banger season.
Yes.
Because I do not hate this episode. It's a fun episode, but I do have issues. And a lot of what Joel said, I agree with. I do think the Una and La'an plot is where fun goes to die. No, that's a little harsh. I'd like the elevator, the turbo lift bit. But yeah, the duel was just so awkward. John, you're right. I don't know what was happening there. A lot of this episode, I think Joel was kind of talking about this. It feels like drama writers and directors doing comedy. Like it feels like, well, I wrote a funny punchline, but now I'm going to add like a hat on a hat, or I'm going to kind of add a moral dramatic beat here that doesn't quite work. I don't know. It just, there were some cringe moments for me. And I'll stick mostly with the Una and La'an plot right now, and we'll talk more later on the body swapping. But yeah, I mean, my issue there is like, yes, Jessie, I can intellectualize that Una is a hard ass that people think is. Also, Una has the better phrase, the fun funeral. That's a much better phrase. They should have stuck with that. These Yeomen are terrible at coming up with nicknames. But yes, I can understand that she's that, but we have not seen that yet. And this episode does a lot of telling and not showing to set up the punchlines, and that's not great writing.
I'm not saying that you're wrong because it's a subjective experience. What I would point to is the times throughout Star Trek's franchise that the writers may have not executed on the page 100%, but I think much like other series, the professionality of the actors is elevating the material, maybe sometimes despite the material. And I loved watching these people have a low-stakes episode. I think even if it required me to go, sure, people think she's a hard ass. I think she's adorable, and I love her manicures, and she's nothing but nice to everyone I've met so far.
This is clearly not the first time Star Trek has done a hijinks episode, and it's not their best hijinks episode, but it's also far from their worst hijinks episode.
Yeah.
When Mbenga and Chapel are talking about science versus, let's call it, not science, right? Chapel goes, magic? And Mbenga goes, the mind. And I was like, oh no, my heart. Like, why is that so deeply affecting? And it's because that is still true. Like, medical science is still in that spot exactly right now, where they're like...
Well, we're going to hear from a couple more callers, and then we're going to talk about Mbenga.
Oh, okay.
The best part of this episode. All right, up next on stage, we have a couple callers back to back. First up is Jessie from Alaska, returning to the Open Pike Night Stage.
Hey, this is Jessie from Alaska, and I just got done watching the new Strange New Worlds episode. I absolutely love the fact that they kept that original fight music. I sometimes hum that when I'm doing stuff around the house, so I enjoyed that. Really love the whole Freaky Friday situation. Thought that was an interesting turn of events there. It was nice to see more of T'Pring, so we get a little more insight of like her relationship with Spock. Love the Nurse Chapel and Spock interaction. I like the Chapel and Ortega friendship. They seem like they could get into a lot of trouble, and I hope they have a whole episode about that in the future. I really like Dr. Mbenga going fishing. It's so modern for like what we do now. It just doesn't seem like something that you would do in Star Trek. So that's one reason why I like it. I was really excited to hear Vulcan language being spoken and to see a little more of Vulcan culture come through, because we see a lot of that with Klingon, but we don't really get a whole bunch of that with Vulcan. And maybe Duolingo at some point will have Vulcan instead of just Klingon. Anyway, see you later.
In this episode of Trek, hijinks and shenanigans are the name of the game, but the guy having the most fun is Dr. Mbenga. Forget about his daughter, locked up in the pattern buffer. Mbenga's hitting the lake. He's going fishing, and he's got the lures, the rod, the funny hat. Probably not fly fishing like he claims, but we can forgive him getting it a little wrong. What matters is he's having a good time, oblivious to every piece of crew-based drama exploding all around him. At the end, he gets to saunter back into the show and fix the Spock T'Pring mix-up with a quick dollop of sea urchin goo. We don't see if he ever caught any fish, and Mbenga is probably a catch-and-release man anyway. And I don't blame him. Fish guts are disgusting.
All right, and that was Isaac, a new voice on the Open Pike Night Stage. Thank you for joining us, Isaac. Thank you, Jessie, another caller who picked up her phone and recorded immediately after watching the episode, and we love that.
Not just sea urchin goo did Mbenga fix things with, but what else? Mind crystals.
Yep, absolutely mind
The return
crystals.
of crystals.
You're welcome.
What was everybody's like single funniest moment in the episode?
I do think that first interaction with Spock and T'Pring and the Pike is really great. I think it was just the dawning realization for me that we were doing a body swap comedy in Star Trek. Is like, once I locked into that, I was all in on this episode. I was like, yeah, you know what? Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, same scene. If I was going to narrow it down to a line, I think my biggest laugh is when Spock says, after they've told Pike that they've switched bodies, Spock, I think, in T'Pring's body says, I'm sure you can tell now by our vastly different mannerisms. And Pike goes, yeah, totally. But in a very Anson Mount delivery that just cracked me up every time I watched it.
Oh, yeah.
If I were going to pick a favorite moment that made me giggle, not necessarily laugh, but giggle and turn red and be happy,
it was when Spock said humans are almost as easy to tease as Vulcans.
Yes.
And Chapel just
followed by the most flirty look that a woman can give to a man. Yeah.
Oh, you meant verbally tease.
Yeah, yeah.
Whew.
it was it felt so Spock to me.
My moment, hands down, the funniest of the episode is when the crew is leaving and Mbenga mentions the nickname and then gets the signal from Ortegas and Chapel, and he's just like, I don't know what I'm talking about. We should probably go. And his delivery on that, just the like, I'm going to laugh about this. I know what I just said. Kyle, please transport us out of here, was amazing. Every scene with him was solid gold in this episode. He just brought it every time, and it was fun to watch his short little bit of that story.
I want to throw out a runners up because I did have another favorite line, which I've got to figure out a way to work into my normal life, which is when Spock goes, I have one more chant we need to try. It may involve a gong.
Yeah.
I don't know why that involving a gong just got my funny bone.
I would say my runner-up is any scene with the Rongovians. I loved the main Rongovian guy. I thought he did a great job of adopting
did a
multiple
fantastic
personalities.
job.
Like I loved that guy.
Your
It was
beard
very
is
well
as
done.
ridiculous as your proposals is maybe my favorite line in that episode.
Our next couple guests on stage are both returning. First up is Peter, longtime contributor, and as we mentioned last week, Peter voluntarily said that if we needed to cut his clip for time, we could, and we did, but now we want to welcome him back to the Open Pike Night Stage.
Hi, this is Peter, and here are my thoughts about Strange New Worlds Episode 5, Spock Amok. For me, this story continues the Strange New World trend of each episode being better than the previous one. So Spock Amok is my favorite Strange New World episode so far. I really enjoyed the low-stakes vibe of the episode, which reminded me of past stories like TNG's Data's Day and Enterprise's Carbon Creek. It was refreshing seeing several crew members having downtime, relaxing, and unwinding. I've always felt that a show should not have all their episodes have high stakes. Including a lower stakes story from time to time provides contrast and variations to the narrative. This is also another way to show character development by having the characters interact with each other in a different environment, such as the ship's lounge or on shore leave. Just like we ourselves need downtime, the crew should be seen in a similar situation as well. I hope we have similar themed shows in future seasons of Strange New Worlds. Now that we are already halfway through Season 1, I would like to get your thoughts on how the season is going so far. What are your favorite parts of the first half? Which aspect of the show has some room for improvement? And is there anything you would like to see in the second half that we haven't seen yet? Thanks, and live long and prosper.
All right, so this is Patrick and Dan and Jessie from the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
Yes.
And we are providing our comments to the Open Pike Night podcast, and we are taking a more measured approach this time around.
Spend half the time telling them what we will be doing.
No, it's just last time we got a little
out there,
freaked out because of the whole 90-second thing.
It was intimidating.
Calm down.
Calm down. Take it down a notch.
Pull it down a little bit.
Use our brains. Use logic.
We want to be able to contribute meaningfully to the conversation because all the other submitters, I listen to the podcast regularly, the Open Pike Night podcast, and they all are submitting really good stuff.
Yeah.
So we have to have at least something mildly interesting.
We shouldn't panic this time, basically.
Don't need to panic. We take it.
I'm starting to panic.
No. We got time. Okay. So, here's the question. Here's the question for the Open Pike Night audience hosts, you guys, if we have time. So Pike was getting ready. So did you notice when Robert April comes in and Pike is all like, what's going, are we good with the Rongovians? What's the deal? Are we good? Robert April comes in and Pike is all like packed up, ready to go someplace.
He's wearing like his off-duty captain's
and he's like
fleece.
putting something in like a backpack. Where do you think he was going to go?
Back to like Montana.
Or was he going to go to one of the things?
Do they have Horgons back then?
I don't know. Oh shit, we're almost out of time. Okay, where was Pike going to go?
All right. And that was Patrick, Dan, and Jessie, the crew of the It's Got Star Trek podcast. Thank you guys again for the fantastic shout out recently on your show. At It's Got Star Trek on Twitter.
Okay, so to answer Peter's question, you guys, you know me, I don't have any complaints about the first half of this season, and when you say half of season, I get so sad.
Well,
but I will
Jessie,
say,
there was your one big complaint about the number of nacelles on the one starship.
That's own Starship's problem. Like, and you know why it only had one nacelle is because it was named after Captain Archer. So the first half of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, I will say, strongest first half of a live action Trek show ever. I think for me, Lower Deck still holds the spot for overall best first season of any Trek. Now, you could make the argument that it's standing on the shoulders of giants. I think all Trek is. But Lower Decks feels to be the first Star Trek series to really just blatantly go, hey, we're a fun Star Trek series. And they stuck with that identity and they nailed it all the way through the first season. And I strongly suspect that Strange New Worlds is going to do the same thing, but we're not there yet. So I can't answer that. And now to answer the questions of the very generous It's Got Star Trek crew, I gotta imagine that he is trying to find a moment to meet up with Captain Batel from the first episode, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they're on a starbase. She's a captain. He's a captain. We see another ship there. There's Captain Batel could be wandering around somewhere on that starbase, which, by the way, gorgeous.
Which would explain Captain Pike's desperation to get the negotiations over with, so much so that he would choose to bring T'Pring in. That is one of those plot points where you're like, okay, this is a comedy episode. We kind of just have to go with it.
There's no other Vulcans on the starbase with the same security, some kind of... you guys have had jobs, right? There's all kinds of reasons a dumb thing has to be the only way.
Mm-hmm. So I am very much enjoying the first season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds so far. As you can tell, I agree with Jessie. I think this, and seeing where it goes from here, it might edge out Lower Decks, just in that I feel it took to the end of season 1 of Lower Decks for it to really... I don't want to say find its legs because it was a good show from the beginning, but it went from just being like a silly, let's have fun and make references show to like, oh, this is actually a really good Star Trek show too. Like there's a good through line and serialized plot happening as well. And so I think Strange New Worlds might have known exactly what it wanted to be from the outset, a little stronger. One thing I love about it, I was going to say this last episode, but we didn't really have time, is just that, 4 or 5 episodes in, I feel each character is so well developed. You know who everyone is after just a few episodes. I mean, I didn't know that Una was where fun goes to die, but I've already addressed that problem. But yeah, overall, very, very good. And I just want to see it keep doing its own thing.
So obviously, I'm a Trek newbie. What I will say, the learning curve of this show was not as steep as I expected it to be.
I wanted to ask you about that, if there's anything that confused you.
Yeah, I mean, the whole first episode, but, I looked up some stuff and kind of got the basics of what I needed, that it's directly after Discovery and there was like a big time jump. I started to get into the reasons why that time jump happened and I got a nosebleed. So I appreciated that as like a very big newcomer to not just Strange New Worlds, but Trek in general. I feel like I didn't need to have, my favorite parts are the parts I don't need 60 years of knowledge to know. And they even do a good job of kind of holding your hand a little bit, especially as someone who, to kind of toot my own horn, is fairly media savvy enough to be aware of like the larger Trek stuff, right? So like, I understand when they reveal that Una's related to Khan, right? That's a big deal. La'an. I get those characters confused all the time.
They're very similar names, and they're both like half a syllable.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So when that gets revealed, I'm like, oh, I've seen the Khan stuff. Like, that's a big deal. Okay, I get it. I don't know the whole lore behind the the gene wars or the eugenics wars or whatever, but I don't need to. I wasn't sure if I was going to stick through the rest of the season after I recorded this episode, partially because I'm very bad at watching TV in general. And partially because I have another podcast I need to watch stuff for, and some podcast appearances I'm doing in July that I need to watch stuff for. But the Memento Mori episode really, really got its hooks into me, and that's where I started to really deeply care about the characters and see where it was headed. So I think as far as that goes, it's very positive. Issues I have with it, it's hard to say, because it's hard to say like what my issues are, whether they're legitimate issues or whether they're issues of someone who has not seen 60 years of Star Trek. So
that's fair.
I don't know if I can say there's any outright issues. I mean, some of the pacing on some of the stuff is maybe a little outdated, I should say. But I also appreciate them sticking to their phasers on that sort of, old school type of storytelling as well.
I do think pacing is the biggest issue on this, which again, for a brand new series, okay, great. That's my biggest complaint. Then this is a fantastic series. I do hope they balance out a little bit. Sometimes we'll see a lot of a character or none of a character. This is the second time we haven't seen Hemmer in an episode in 5 episodes. I get that, like, we can't give every character a lot of time in every episode. I was a little worried at first, because after my first watch of this, I thought, ooh, did Uhura only get one line? Did we just fully go back to original series style? But no, she had some lines here and there, but was definitely a side character in this episode. Other than that, I'm enjoying it. I will agree. I'm obviously going to watch the whole thing, and I'll watch the whole series. But episode 4 definitely, like, yep, that set the hook. That really was like, okay, this is a very competent team who knows what they're doing to make this show. I'm fully on board for it, and I think Pike was absolutely headed for a romantic engagement somewhere, because
the only place he goes.
He was packing fast.
See, I think you had just heard about a Robert Wise film festival happening on the Starbase, and just because all my jokes need explaining, Robert Wise directed The Day That Earth Stood Still, which he was watching in the first episode.
Do we have an official ship name for, can we call them Ortapel? I like Ortegas and Chapel. Like, there is
Chortegas.
Chortegas. I like that. What was the other one that we had?
Hemura?
It was Hemura, because Uhumur sounds dirty.
Yeah, I thought he was just trying to make it to Whataburger before it closed. That was just.
There's a regional joke.
I don't even. I'm an In-N-Out kid. Kind of to what Jessie was saying, and John, what you were saying about like balancing the characters. I want more Ortegas so bad. She's such a great character.
I want to know how she got involved in a Vulcan dispute.
Yeah,
give us
it
that
ended up in the
backstory.
leader fight. Yeah.
Yeah, she's such a great character, and just like what's her name, Melissa something?
Navia.
Melissa Navia.
Yep. She's great on the show. She's maybe my favorite character on the whole show, and like every time she shows up, she's just like very like. She's a very magnetic performer, and every time she shows up, I'm like, I want to know more about that character.
We've talked about how, like, they've revealed the least about her, but she has all of our favorite characters that we want to see more of.
I am sort of wondering if she will have a connection to the planet in the next episode. It seems to be very, like, high fantasy, like, we have rules about society, and they cannot be broken. And we've seen Ortegas in the sort of knight kind of outfit before. In some of the promotional materials, so I'm interested. We had the archery going on. There was some vines. I'm interested if that's our next episode or if that's still coming up. But yeah, I think just the last note that I would make on it is like to watch the same creative crew swing from 1980s badass submarine movie to 1960s body swap comedy. Is like, yes, give me those swings. Like, I'm here for that as a human being who lives in the United States. I could use a farcical comedy every once in a while. Like, I loved watching an episode of Star Trek where it didn't matter, but I was still invested. Like, I was like, yes, thank you so much for this episode this week.
All right. Next up on stage, we have Abby from the First Flight podcast returning to the Open Pike Night Stage.
Hey, Open Pike, it's Abby Summer. I was going to let some other voices take your stage this week, but anyone who listens to me over on First Flight Pod knows I could not pass up talking about what was one of my very favorite parts of this entire series so far. I could talk about this episode in general for a long time, and there's a lot of great pieces, but I'm sure your other callers will do that. I wanted to make sure that you guys took a minute to appreciate the costuming in this episode, which is one of my favorite things. I talk about it all the time over on my podcast about how I love the details that go into the alien costumes in Star Trek or the off-duty clothes, and this episode had both of those. I mean, we had all the Vulcan costuming, which was glorious and made my heart just full, and the jewelry and T'Pring's headpiece, that one is absolutely stellar. But we had all the cool things on the Rongovian costumes, Pike's green uniform top with the shiny sleeves, which I personally really like, all the different shore leave outfits, especially Chapel. She looked just spot on in everything we saw her in. The background people in the bar were incredible. And how could we forget Dr. Mbenga's hat, which will now be a con staple, I'm guessing, for cosplays. So, wow, I loved this episode. Wow, I love your pod. Hope everybody is well, and we'll talk again soon.
That was Abby Summer again from the First Flight Podcast at First Flight Pod on Twitter. Our next guest wrote in. Kelly, returning to the stage, said, I really enjoyed the opening scene, paying homage to TOS's Amok Time, including using the music. The interesting, though, that all the attending Vulcans were female. One thing I noted in Spock's quarters, Spock moves 2 vases on a table, then T'Pring walks in and moves the same 2 vases back to where Spock had originally placed them. Love that Spock's quarters are decorated similar to TOS. There's a Vulcan harp, the shield, the weapons displayed on the wall. And again, this episode follows the previous 4, viewed through Spock's eyes. His is the only log quoted, Science Officer's log. In a way, Strange New Worlds is introducing each of the main cast individually. In my opinion, this makes the series user-friendly for new fans. Also nice to see Admiral April again, meet a new alien race in the Rongovians, a quick blurry glimpse of the Tellarite, and seeing Ensign Zier, a Bullion. And Enterprise Bingo, a hoot of an episode and a fun romp. Thank you, Kelly. That was Kelly St. Georgie at Antipodal on Twitter.
Yeah, we now know who lit all the candles in the first episode. Apparently Spock is the candle lighter, because he did it again here.
Yep. That man loves putting waxy deposits on the walls of whatever room he's in. Don't use candles, people.
Like 100 candles. That takes some time. Yeah, I loved, we kind of mentioned it before, but let's give some love to those early Vulcan scenes. Those were probably my second favorite scenes of the episode, where the flirting and the fighting in Vulcanese, which are very similar.
Yes.
I loved all that interplay between Spock and T'Pring at the beginning. That was some good stuff.
And that to me really set up, I was like, oh, we're going full screwball comedy here. These two are having a quiet, cadenced, relaxed conversation, and she is insulting the shit out of his decorating style and saying, well, we'll see how you do. Maybe. Like,
I'm sorry. Were those vases or were those cups? Because they were quite dangerous. Like
they look like very dangerous cups.
I feel like it is a Vulcan thing to, like, you must drink out of this cup only in one way or you may die. Right?
I hold it to
that is
neck,
a
the
Vulcan
cup
thing
to
do. Not safe at all. Cup of fee, right? Like, wow.
Yeah, the costumes, fantastic. Again, we can talk about, well, it's only 10 episodes. Like, yeah, but man, they put money into these 10 episodes.
Yeah, the budget across the board on the show is just like you see every dollar on display. It is such a slick looking TV show, and the costumes are no small part of that. I feel like I think they're some of the coolest looking Star Trek costumes, and like even just like stills and clips and stuff that I've seen. Everything is just very like sleek and stylish and very cool looking, but not in the way either. None of it's like too flashy or showy or calling attention to itself unless it needs to.
Well, and can we give some love to the Rongovian design? I mean, Star Trek is famous for aliens that are just dudes with some, putty on their face and like a funny pattern or whatever. They just gave this dude a zebra stripe in purple and like some points here and there, and it's like purely effective. I love it. That's all I need. I get it. He's an alien. He's similar enough. Like, I love it. It's so basic in Star Trek. And yeah, I feel like this episode is a reassurance that, like, even in the downtime, this show is just knocking home runs out of the park. Like I love it.
It's a very purposeful show, I think. Like, I think especially after, even to the structure of the way it's set up, like last week's was definitely the most intense episode of the season so far. And maybe potentially like a total. Like a lot of stuff happened. It's a very somber episode just in the subject matter it was dealing with. And like, it came out around what is a somber holiday for Americans and things like that. And so it was very like, I think respectful to the holiday that it was following and at the same time this week is like a steam release valve from that intensity that happened, and it's got this real cool like ebb and flow and sort of like pressure build, pressure release, but the pressure release isn't this big climactic thing.
It's funny, Cameron mentioned that on our last episode that over and over just in the Memento Mori was the pressure build and release.
Yeah.
That's beautiful synchronicity.
Yeah. And so it just like it's released here, but it's not released in like big like dramatic moments between these characters all like suddenly getting to know each other and now Mabenga's secret is out and to everyone, like, all these characters who had big reveals last show, they aren't getting like found out in quotes in this episode the way like I feel like another more serialized show would have that pressure release happen. And so because of the episodic nature of it, you can have the pressure release in these sort of like goofier episodes, but it's still very purposeful. And I think the creative team behind it, like it shows that the creative team behind it kind of knows what they're doing and they have a plan for where they want those moments to happen and when they want them to happen and when they want to pull back on them and when they want to start building them back up.
Nurse Chapel, it was fun to get to know more about her. I very much enjoyed the way they told her story. It was from, again, going with the screwball comedy of like, oh no, we're just going to have fun. And what does Space Chad do? Immediately, he's the one saying, so what are we? And just the way they conveyed her like, damn it. Just the sound fading out. Like, all right, I'm going to go talk to another dude now. I will say this is the future. It might just be Jess Bush's own personal scars, but I think the 3 scars on Chapel's arm being there, despite the fact that they could easily have been removed, might be some kind of foreshadowing, something about her tale we haven't heard yet, because they were very prominent.
I was going to say, one of the things I like about her is that we're finally getting a character with like low stake emotional stakes. Like she's not a secret alien forbidden by the Federation. She just has trouble, forming romantic relationships. I like that. Let's have a character like that.
And when she gets attracted to somebody, they're her superior officer and engaged.
That's right.
Like soul engaged. Now that may not be the end of the Chapel story here, because she did say it would have to be the right fella, right?
Yeah.
With a heavy implication that the rest of that sentence was, or just person in general. But there is.
Oh, when she paused talking to Ortega's?
So,
no, that's not what she was going to say.
So, what I'm saying is like they're setting up a lot of possibilities in what she hasn't said, right?
Yeah.
Like, they specifically left a lot of that stuff vague with her, I think, on purpose.
Well, they were pretty specific about her being bisexual.
Oh, yeah. That's the one thing that we can agree was like definitely front and center.
I liked that. Yeah, she and Mbenga, it wasn't even like, oh, we need to do research to figure out how to fix this. Like, I wish they had a scene where she transported to his lake and she's like, hey, man, the Vulcans got all messed up. We got to go help. And I was like, all right. And grabs his urchin paste and they just transfer. Like, they knew what they were going to do.
Why would you not just go to Vulcan? Like,
you're right.
I'm sure somebody on Vulcan would be like, oh, yes, this has happened. Take this and we will see you in 2 hours.
Yes.
I mean, I do have a lot of plotty questions about this episode, like, why did that happen? And I don't buy Mbenga's, like, hand-wavy emotions response.
Because
like,
Spock's
why
not fully
why are the Rongovians early in that first scene? It felt like that was going to be a thing that played into it, but it didn't. Why do they only want to talk to Spock? Because it needs to happen to force the plot and the hijinks. Yep. How did Pike's speech address T'Pring's issue? I'm going to get into the body swapping stuff in a bit. The radical empathy at the end was like, the Rongovians were like, so you understand why we wouldn't want to join you. Okay, we'll join you. Okay.
Yep.
Well, you could argue that they had just spent all day being given good reasons to join. They mostly played devil's advocate against those reasons, but that doesn't mean that they weren't taking them into consideration. And if they were as deeply empathetic as they claim to be, then they would understand the good intentions of everybody just failing to communicate, right? And failing to assume the correct posture.
Yeah.
And I think that it was we're only going to talk to Spock because we want to see what a Vulcan would say about like this milieu of cultures without human influence. You're only here as an observer. Now I only want to talk to Captain Pike.
They're not joining the humans. They're joining the Federation, which is
but now they want
just as much Vulcan as anyone else.
So now they only want to talk to Captain Pike. It's like they want to only talk to the constituent pieces, and then they talk to them together, right? Because even though it breaks their protocol, they're seeing these two different species stand up for each other, and they specifically see Pike going, hey, we value him specifically for his culture. Like, we need him to be very Vulcan when he's on the ship, and like,
is that what he was saying?
Well, that's kind of how I came across, is like, we value him for who he is, much the way the Federation will value you for who you are, right? Like,
I mean, he was pretty explicitly saying we value him because he has a strong sense of duty towards Starfleet. I mean, he was almost saying the opposite. We value him because he sacrifices for us.
Right, but it's a mutual
Which
sacrifice.
I don't know why that convinces the Rongovians or T'Pring. Like, both of their issues were like counter to that.
T'Pring specifically is asking for mutual sacrifice, and the Federation is specifically based on mutual sacrifice, right? Like, no one species is in charge. Now, maybe like it appears from the outside that humans are probably in charge because the show is written by humans, right?
Yeah.
But like, I think that they're trying to get at like, look, we will make every attempt to understand you and to not stomp on your culture. We want to incorporate it, despite the fact that, yes, that will be difficult and messy and multi-tiered and all this stuff, right? It's worth the attempt, I think. So I think that that's what he's trying to convey there, and that's why, because he says they liked when I broke their protocol because I was standing up for Spock. But I guess that was
I didn't have as much a problem with the variant. It was a little muddy, but I followed.
Were you talking about the scene with Spock, or were you talking about the scene at the end where he's like, "Here's all the reasons you shouldn't join," or was it kind of?
I was talking about both.
Okay, so that scene. I have a very low stakes, very real world, very connected to Star Trek answer about why that last scene works, and it's sort of like in November of 2009, I worked in a far off land called Blockbuster Video, and
what is that?
I already love the story.
You know, November, Black Friday happens. We were open for Black Friday really early. No one goes to Blockbuster on Black Friday. Star Trek 2009 had just come out on DVD, and this lady comes in to buy it at our discounted rate. So it's like 10% off, like $20, right? So it's like, I don't know, $18. I know for a fact, because I purchased my copy that morning on a little website called Amazon for $6. And I look at this lady and I go, look, like, I can't sit here and let you pay $18 for this DVD when I know for a fact you can get it for a third of this on it. Like, it just felt so morally wrong to me that that I was about to do this lady. And she was like, I really appreciate your honesty. I'm going to buy this here because of how honest you were about that. So that's kind of how it was connected. Now, later on in my life, when I needed to get an HDMI cable from Best Buy, and the guy said, hey, just go on monoprice.com, I said, thanks for the tip, and walked my ass out of Best Buy and went to Monoprice. So,
because you understood that clerk behind the counter was going to get no benefit from you buying there.
Exactly. Also, a similar thing happens in Miracle on 34th Street, I think.
Well, and there's also I will say this because it should be said, there is a willingness amongst Star Trek fans to vote with their wallets, right? Like, and their eyes and their hearts, and get wrecked, Enterprise. I'm sorry, I can't help myself. But like, there's like, we can't watch this show without paying for it, right? Like, this show is on a service that you have to pay for to watch it.
Yeah.
I think the only Trek series left on Netflix in America is DS9, which is great because it makes it really easy to watch an episode here and there. We've had our moments about the Paramount Plus app, but it is a thing. To MJ's point, Star Trek fans are willing to go, yeah, I am going to pay the monthly fee to watch this because I love Star Trek. And I think that, you know what? I'm just going to say it. Paramount is watching every episode of this and going, oh, look, there's an increase in subscribers right there. There's a decrease in subscribers right there. There's an increase right there. They're going to lean into what works. That's what Star Trek does. And to Cameron's point, it might get to season 3 before we see them take any huge, like, giant departures in style. But I think so far the fans are voting with their wallets in the yes category.
This was my one other part where, again, pacing and editing, I think, like, oh, there was so many missed opportunities here. The way they started this episode with Spock and T'Pring just firing shots across each other's bows in what, you know, if this were noises off, if this were something, would have just been a rapid fire kind of exchange. That scene where they convinced the Rongovians to join should have been an insane. Chapel comes in, Spock as T'Pring comes in, Mbenga comes in, everybody's like, I'm Spock, no, he's Spock, you know, and just the Rongovians are like, what is going on? April's in the background just slamming a drink, like, you know, it should have been, like, again, if you're gonna go screwball comedy, go screwball comedy.
Sure.
And I think they could have sold it. I think they could have had a lot of fun with that. In more seriousness, though, I do wish the conversation between Spock and T'Pring in their quarters after they'd swapped back, I wish they hadn't have swapped yet. I wish that talk between the two of them had happened before the swap, and that they had been like, all right, should we do it before we swap back? And it's like, come on, if you really want to learn about your partner, it's like, have sex as them.
Maybe in the future they are so far past gender and sexuality that they're like, you know what, it doesn't even matter. We know how it would be because we've been in the heads.
They've already done it dozens of times. That's what Vulcan teenagers do.
Here's our next guest returning to the Open Pike Night Stage.
Hello and what's up, guys? It's Sirius. I wasn't here for the last episode, but I'm definitely back for the hijinks of Spock Amok. I gotta say, this really felt like the original series. It was so goofy, and I just love it. I love that we finally got to see Pike's green dress tunic. Celia Rose Gooding is amazing as usual. It was just so much fun. Like, I love the banter between Spock and T'Pring. This episode has me waiting for the nuclear breakup that we know is coming, and we just don't know when. I love Mbenga's fishing hat. Again, like, it feels like the original series. I genuinely hope that we see more of that funny little hat. Una and Lon doing the entirety of Enterprise Bingo, just, like, more so. It felt maybe too hijinky for even this episode. I don't know how I feel about it, but it was fun to see them spending quality time together. I can't really complain. That's all I had, guys. Bye.
And that was Sirius returning to the Open Pike Night Stage at Creator Sirius on Twitter.
Whoa. Looks like we need to reinforce the shields. We've just ran into a Vulcan lovers quarrel. I sure do love a Vulcan fight. And the lovers quarrel is one of my favorite kinds. So one of my favorite parts of the episodes is the opening, where we get what looks like a direct prequel to Amok Time, the classic TOS episode, with a much better, what do you call it, a sword fight? I guess it's a sword fight, a staff fight. I don't know what those things are called. It's much better than the original version. And they brought back the classic soundtrack to that particular scene. I loved it. It was awesome. And the whole episode was absolutely special. I especially loved that each of the story threads kind of centers around the theme of empathy, except for maybe Nurse Chapel. She was just being honest with herself. But everything else was about empathy and how it seems like all of the characters of the various storylines had come to understand or come to employ empathy with other people. So this was another fantastic episode. It's doing a great job. It's doing the Lord's work. All right, so that's me, Zoe, of the USS Cinema, signing out.
That was our friend Zoe returning to the Open Pike Night Stage. He runs the Backlook Cinema podcast at Backlook Cinema.
Yeah, I agree with Zoe that I do love that there was a through line between all of the different hijinks storylines, right? Like that's where you can see that these were good dramatic writers. Maybe not the best comedy writers, but good dramatic writers tying those all together. To that point, like, I think there's a lot of really good moments of writing, like when the Rongovians first come in, there's a lot of really nice seeds planted about what's going to come later when they're talking about, like, how do you understand so many different voices speaking at once? Like, that tied in with empathy. I love that T'Pring as Spock, I believe, has a great line in that scene we're talking about where she says, I can't talk to them, I'm engaged, which has, of course, very specific dual meanings to it. That being said, let's talk about body swapping, guys. Now, when I discovered it was a body swapping episode, I was delighted. I'm like, Star Trek is taking the swing. Let's see where this goes. And I'm fine with the body swapping mechanic. It as we've said, it works well enough. But there's a reason in body swapping movies and shows that you take two very different characters and have them swap bodies. There's a reason it's usually a parent and a child, or a human and an animal, or a serial killer and a teen girl. So when you have two Vulcans swapping bodies, I will say that the actors did a marvelous job kind of embodying the subtle differences between Spock and T'Pring. But, like, if you're going to take that big a swing, like, juice it for all it's got, and two Vulcans is not the juice you're going to get. And then furthermore, John, you were saying what you wanted to see when they talk at the end. I like that talk. I like when they're finally honest with each other. But that seemed to be the key to them solving their relationship. I would have loved to have seen their experiences as each other address their issues that they had with the relationship at all.
Yeah.
They're very clear about what the issues are. T'Pring feels Spock does not prioritize the relationship, and later she says she fears he views it as the duty, and he fears that she sees him as too human. Those are very clearly set up as their issues. What they do in each other's bodies, I don't see how that connects with that at all, except it maybe gets them to the point where they're honest with each other in that scene before then they get necky.
Yeah,
I think that's the key, is that it is the answer is they're the ones that need to learn the lesson, right? Like, they need to see the difference between those two characters, because Pike straight admits, he's like, oh, yeah, totally. We could see the huge differences. And when he says that, then you notice, oh, yeah, Spock is holding his hands very daintily, and, T'Pring's arms are crossed behind her back. I love the subtlety of one of them calling him Chris and one of them calling him Captain. It was like, this is uncomfortable in the best ways. But I will ask you, Cameron, then, as I am wont to do, who should Spock have body swapped with in this episode? Because there are no animals or pets available. Ortegas would be pretty funny, right? The height difference makes it inherently funny. And then we get more Tegas. But who would you have had Spock swap?
Well, that was my question, was like, is body swapping the best way or a good way to deal with their relationship problems? And yes, it is. It's just, is two Vulcans the best body swap story? No, it's not. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe it should have been Nurse Chapel and Spock. Nurse Chapel, who's clearly having issues committing to a relationship, and Spock having, like, seeing that point of view.
That almost might have turned into the X-Files body swapping episode with Chapel going.
I think you're right in the, like, mechanically it's great, comedically it's great. I really liked the subtleties with which they had to adjust their performances, because I feel like it was kind of different for the body swap genre. Like, obviously, to use your Freaky example, because I love that movie, right? Having Vince Vaughn act like a teenage girl and having this teenage girl act like a serial killer, those are very extreme things. So, like, you can be a lot more broad with your performance in that. With this, you have to be a lot more calculated with the performances, and so I like that, and I thought they did a very good job. But yeah,
that's fair.
T'Pring's storyline as to why, or Spock as T'Pring's storyline as to why it made him understand her more, I got nothing. I can't like.
Yeah, and I don't buy the punch.
Sure.
So, and I think what it is that it's not necessarily that he doesn't understand her. I think it's that it's that they both have a fear of, am I enough,
Mhm.
right? So he is afraid of his human side, right? Like he's literally fighting his human side.
Right.
And then he spends time as her, realizing, oh, the qualities that she likes in me are enough for her. So like her job is to apply rigorous logic at all times, and still she was like, I really like this half human guy. So like it was him going, okay, maybe I can just accept the faith that, she has in me.
Yeah.
Now, was all of that written in, in a subtle way? Maybe not, but I think...
Yeah, I feel it's missing a
But I
beat,
agree with MJ that having them, do the subtle difference might be closer to the lesson they were trying to teach them, right? Which is you're actually very similar to one another, and once you recognize the similarities, it's going to be a lot easier to move forward, which is what Pike recognized with the Rungovians.
Yes,
right?
and
I did find it...
I was just going to say, I appreciated the first caller in this section pointing out how labored the rhyme is between Spock and Amok.
Yes, that's one of my favorite things. And the second thing I think in a title that's my favorite thing is a title that is far too long. And I do have to say, welcome back, Sirius. I know that I have said this before, but I feel always buoyed by your enthusiasm because I feel it hits a very similar note that my heart is on.
I did also love and find it interesting that Spock very clearly is the human side in his dream, right? Like he is the human half is who he is dreaming, the eyes he's dreaming through, right? But then later when he's talking to Chapel, he says he has to fight his human side. So he's still not being honest with himself even at that point, or at least with her.
You guys, this is a real life actual moment that we're having live during the recording of this episode. Melissa Navia just tweeted, the actress for Ortegas, just tweeted,
Ortegas?
Someone said this already. Was it Open Pike? So I can't take credit, but it made me smile. So here goes. More Tegas, please. Can't say what's to come, but focus episode or not. And thanks to our awesome writers, you'll be falling for Ortegas as I did. # Strange New Worlds. I'm like having a moment, you guys. Like we just said Mortegas in the show, and then Ortega said Mortegas, and now it is sort of catching on Twitter, and this is amazing.
Does she
I'm so
listen
happy
to
right
the
now.
show?
She,
I wouldn't be surprised at this point.
Did you see
yes,
Cameron's
of course. Hello, Melissa.
amazing meme with Melissa Navia on the Top Gun poster?
I saw that she retweeted.
She retweeted that.
Yeah.
That was, I'm having a small freak out.
That's amazing. Kim, like you said, they took a swing on this. I feel like they saw the perfect home run, took a swing for it, and pulled it for a beautiful double right at the end for a baseball metaphor there.
That's right.
I did appreciate that they balanced the comedy with the empathy and with the depth, and I do think most of those moments actually hit pretty well. If they had really wanted to show the full empathy, they would have had a 1-minute monologue of Mbenga holding a fish he had just caught and talking to it about the meaning of life before just chucking it back in the water, which again would have been a great screwball comedy balance moment, but okay, whatever. I'll forgive it.
To address our listeners, I do want to say, Mbenga's hat.
Yeah.
I want a whole episode on that hat.
There was some pulling back on this when I feel like maybe a little more just like, let's go all in would have worked. But I get that, we all have things that we would have liked to see, but what I saw, I enjoyed.
I will say, if there's one thing that I would love to see in an episode that I'm not sure if it's been planned or if it's already happened yet, give me a hugely famous guest actor in like a throwaway side character role. I would love to get one of those, like Trek is good at that usually, and I'm ready for whatever Strange New Worlds is going to do.
Yeah,
with that.
well, you know who Paramount's golden boy is right now. Throw some pointy ears on Tom Cruise and...
Oh, yeah.
Who could Tom Cruise play in an episode of Strange New Worlds? Hit us up on Twitter at Open Pike.
Ortegas' dad.
Oh, yep, there it is.
They're the same height.
cut the part where I say hit us up on Twitter because that is the answer.
Any final thoughts before we close out here?
How is the Scorch, the last remaining unreplaced bit of the Enterprise, the very front of the bow?
Especially considering that part was very clearly blown off in the season 2 finale of Discovery. But once again, as it always does, this comes down to a great idea by Jorg Hillebrand at GachYogi49 on Twitter. And he says they clearly salvaged it and put it back in place for sentimental reasons. And it is the future, so that's not impossible. Now, the other thing is, they could have a pattern of that just saved in the transporter, right? Would that count?
I think that would still be replaced. Yeah. It would still have that gum flavor.
Okay, question. Cameron, when you sign the Scorch, are you just writing your name? Or are you leaving a snarky comment?
I'm writing my name and then writing underneath it, may the force be with you.
Okay, just if you don't want to listen to this podcast anymore, I understand and apologize. I really liked that Una put number 1 next to her name. It felt so high school, right? Like, in the best way, like, I'm number 1. And I loved that.
MJ?
Well, so here's my thing about the Scorch. I refuse to believe, because signing the Scorch is like an act of rebellion, although a playful one. How is there not a dick on there?
There's a couple dicks on there. Let's just
there's gotta be.
They just didn't show them.
Just be honest. Yeah, that's why the whole top part of that frame is blurred.
Yeah,
because they're like, we don't want to get sued.
Yeah, for sure.
I would definitely just sign my name, but it would be full John Hancock style, just huge.
Yeah.
Just
signed over top of every other name in the brightest color laser pen. Weld.
MJ would just add the drawing that Quint does in the town meeting scene.
I was thinking about doing Peter Benchley, the guy who authored Jaws. He on his autograph, he always drew a shark.
Okay, last note that I will say, if there's one thing that I haven't seen in this series yet that I really would like to see, it's a saucer separation. I confidently believe that is going to happen. Every time they swoop over that saucer, it's like, man, that thing looks modular as hell to me. It just looks really modular. And the impulse drive right there on the edge of I think we're going to get a saucer separation, you guys.
Oh, I didn't talk much about Chapel. She's great. She's a really, really good character. And I think this goes for most of the cast. And this has been happening to me a lot lately where, like, I'll watch a cast with, like, relative newcomers and be like, where in the hell are these people the whole time? Like, I feel like everyone on the cast is really solid. I just saw Top Gun 2 yesterday, and I was like, where'd they find these people? That Glenn Powell guy in that movie, if you guys have seen it, I was just like, oh, he's going to be a massive star. And I feel that way about several people in this cast as well. Like, I think, I think Jess Bush has, like, a pretty big career ahead of her.
I hope the Chief Kyle actor never does anything again on purpose. Like, I want him to go, I'm not available. This is my job. Really quickly, just in case you happen to be listening, writer-producer Bill Wolkoff, thank you for the wonderful retweet of the Team Mortega's tweet. I am beside myself, you guys. I'm losing it. We have to close this up.
I think the music in this, especially the Spock and T'Pring music, needed to be a little more lighthearted and a little more present as far as conveying that this was supposed to be comedy. As right after the
there
body
were
swap.
some scenes where it really did, like the early arguing was very comedic, and then like most of the Una and La'an storyline was very dramatic.
Yes. Yeah, and I think the music might have been. It's not bad music. I just don't think it was. It wasn't matching the intended tone of the scene. Right. And the little Star Trek theme chime that came after Una checked off the chewing gum on the Star Trek bingo on the pad was adorable and a perfect touch. It felt very Eddie from Fallout to me, just cheering the theme song every time you do something cool. So, yeah.
Producer John, give me a beat poet beat behind me. This is from our friend Kelly on Twitter at Antipodal. Poor Spock. He was stuck inside a body not his own, but With a bit of luck and Mbenga and Chapel's pluck, Spock became unstuck in a world that had run amok.
That was very Dr. Seuss.
It was very William Shatner to me.
In the best way.
You had to
yes,
read
yes,
it as
thank you.
Shatner to get it to sound like to a beat poet, and I didn't know what her
Yes.
intention was, so I took a swing.
Works for all those. It works for all those. Yep.
Thank you to all of our guests on the OPN stage. Once again this week, I've had to decide who gets on stage or not. A special shout out to @JoshAlder and @Rosie9899 for sending clips that we had to bump. Have no fear, though. Every voice that contributes will be heard on the Open Pike Night podcast. So be sure to include your voice, send in your clips. You only have 5 episodes left to get your chance on stage. It's time for us to rate this episode. MJ, we are ranking episodes in order as far as how we like them compared to the other episodes of the show so far. Jessie, I'll start with you. Are we back on the best episode every week?
I loved this episode. I had a blast with this episode. I would have trouble rating it objectively if Memento Mori weren't such like just a perfect episode of Star Trek for me. So let's see. We've got 5 episodes now. I'm gonna go 4, 2, 5, 3, 1, and 1 is only falling in the rankings because everything that comes every week is like, yes, do more of that, yes. And episode 1 was so strong, but I keep getting what I want. So I think that is currently my ranking.
Okay. Cam?
So I guess from least to most favorites, and again, there's moments and aspects of this episode I really liked, and it was certainly not a hard watch, but I think it is my least favorite so far. There was just some awkwardness to it. So I think I would go 5, 3, 2, 1, 4.
MJ, what'd you think?
I agree. It's probably my least favorite so far, but that doesn't mean there's a bad episode yet. I don't think it's a terrible episode of television by any means. I've seen way worse. And yeah, so this ranking from least to most favorite is still like they're all worth watching. I don't think you need to skip any of them whatsoever, and there's good stuff in all of them. So take that as well. So I would say probably 5, 3, 1, 2, 4.
I like you, MJ. Knew I liked you. Knew I brought you on here for a reason.
And for me, same thing. There's some issues with it. Fun episode to watch. I've watched it a couple times. I would definitely watch it again in the near future, just because, like, oh yeah, I want to enjoy parts of this again. I'm gonna have to say, as far as favorite to least favorite, I'm gonna go with 4, 2, 1, 5, 3. I still think this beats out Ghosts of Valeria for me. All right. Well, thank you for joining us for another Open Pike Night. Jessie, now that we're 50% of the way through season 1 of Strange New Worlds and Open Pike Night, how can our listeners get on stage and share their thoughts, feelings, or jokes about Strange New Worlds?
Speaking of feelings, I'm deeply upset, and you do that every week. But you know what? I heard Strange New Worlds is going to be hitting the European territories soon. Maybe we could do something for that. But
just re-record every episode with a British accent.
There we go.
and we're done. Okay, planning over. If you like snark in the tweets and sincere love for Starfleet in the sheets, then follow me on Twitter @Openpike. We are a bit of a meme factory there. And if you follow me on Twitter @Openpike, you will see at the top a little button that says Start Reading. That's where you can get your weekly reminder to send your thoughts, jokes, questions, or concerns about the latest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds to us in a 90-second audio file to openpike@gmail.com. Remember, check your junk and spam folders because I assure you our newsletter is neither of those things. Now, after that, if you're still feeling generous, please go give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts, really. But of course, just like Mr. Spock, for us, your ears are enough.
And are there any new places people can find us?
Actually, I'm glad you asked that, Producer John. We realized that in 2022, some folks don't want to just download a file and keep it on their phone with them and listen at their convenience. No, what they'd rather do is go to YouTube and have that audio played probably, into 9 chunks with little ads for stuff they don't need. periodically placed throughout automatically by the YouTube algorithm. If that's how you like to consume your podcasts, go to YouTube and look up Open Pike Night. We have a channel there now, and you can listen to full episodes there, as well as see our very cool little animated clips that we use on social media to get people to listen to the show. But we recognize that not everybody listens to podcasts the same way, and we want to give you as many options as possible to hear what we have to say, and by extension, to participate and make it into your spot on the stage.
MJ, how can people find more of you?
Yeah, best place probably Twitter, at MJSmith891 on Twitter. I tweet too much, way too much, but that's the best place to find me. The best place to find my stuff. One, there's a link tree in my bio. Two, at Jaws for a Minute is my other podcast. We talked about Jaws 1 minute at a time. So we watched a minute of Jaws and then talked about it for an hour to an hour and a half. And we just finished it a couple weeks ago at this point. Woo! Yeah, so we're done, but that is not the end of Let's Jaws for a Minute. We will be doing one episode each on each of the sequels. We will not be doing those minute by minute. And then after that, our listeners have determined that the first season after we're done with the Sharky movies is going to be the filmography of Steven Spielberg from Duel through Hook.
Hell yeah.
And we're going to be skipping Jaws, obviously, and we're also going to be skipping Close Encounters and Always because we have Richard Dreyfuss season planned, and we're going to do it as part of that. So
excellent. Thank you. And Cam, where can people find more of you?
Yeah, let me just second At Jaws for a Minute is a great podcast. If you have any love for Jaws at all, check it out. I listened to every episode and even got to appear on one and maybe talking about some Temple of Doom in their upcoming season. But to hear even more of me and producer John T. Bolds, you can check out Green Shirt, a newbie's trek through the Next Generation, where I am watching The Next Generation for the first time. We're in season 5. It's good times. You can find us at GreenShirt87 on Twitter is our most active social media, and Green Shirt, newbie's trek through TNG, wherever you get your pods.
Jesse, where can people hear more of you?
If for whatever reason Open Pike Night isn't enough of me for you, you can also find my other podcast, Sudden But Inevitable, on whatever app it is that you're using to listen to this, including YouTube. And if you would like to follow that show on Twitter, that is at Sudden But, that's but with one T. We, of course, are the single-season sci-fi television rewatch podcast where I force my friends to experience shows they somehow missed. We started with Firefly, we moved into Cowboy Bebop. Right now we're watching an anime called Death Note, and we are having a blast. We are just back from a 1-week break, which equates to 2 weeks with no new show because of how we do it. But please join Sudden But Inevitable for what is season 4 right now before we get back to celebrating Firefly for the 20th anniversary of the show. Yeah.
And you can find me on Twitter at John T. Bolds. It's been a long night, and I have an appointment with my sea urchin paste dealer. She's got the primo stuff this week. Please be sure to clean up any messes you may have made while swapping bodies, and be sure to tip your servers. You can go anywhere you want, but you can't stay here. Jesse, that look.
That was gross.